Donald Trump and his enablers have American blood on their hands. Why won't Trump ask his followers to stop using violence? Why won't he explain to them that this is going to be resolved in the 2022 and 2024 election? Why won't he stop the killing of Americans by a deadly virus when it was he that helped develop the COVID vaccines, but yet has not publicly supported vaccinations, even though he personally has been vaccinated? This is a man who has blood on his hands from the January 6th attack on the Capitol and the countless of preventable COVID deaths that he could have helped avoid. Welcome to The Naked Truth on the USA Podcast channel, the program where I share the important notes of the day from newspapers, magazines, social networks, radio, and television in the United States from a Hispanic point of view that impact all Americans, not just some. I'm Juan Andres, also known as Senor USA. Donald Trump and his Republican enablers still continue with their un-American tactics. For example, here's a police report on what one of his followers did just days ago at the Capitol.
This afternoon, U.S. Capitol Police held a news conference on a bomb threat near the Library of Congress. A man who claimed to have a bomb in his pickup truck surrendered to police after the standoff.
Again, thank you for your patience. Just moments ago, Floyd Roy Rosenberry from Grover, North Carolina, was taken into custody without incident. As we talked about earlier, Mr. Rosenberry had parked a truck and was sitting in a truck for several hours in front of the Library of Congress. And he had advised that he had explosives. And over the course of time, we tried to negotiate with Mr. Rosenberry. We first started doing that with a whiteboard, just writing messages back and forth. We used a robot to get a telephone down to him, but he would not use the telephone. But shortly after we had delivered the telephone, he got out of the vehicle and surrendered. And the tactical units that were close by took him into custody without incident.
Now I'll report to you the full details of how this happened. The Capitol was evacuated because a man parked his truck outside the Library of Congress, threatening to detonate a bomb just blocks from the scene of the Capitol insurrection on January 6th. Floyd Ray Roseberry also had a fit on Facebook Live, attacking the president and other members of the Democratic Party and calling for a revolt against the government of the United States. Considering the events on the January 6th attack on the Capitol and the violent sentiments expressed by supporters of Donald Trump, should supporters of Donald Trump done one of the following: denounce the actions of the individual and offer gratitude to the law enforcement agents who were on the scene? Or insist that no matter one's politics, violent rhetoric and behavior is never, ever, ever acceptable? Or sympathize with the bomber and say that you fully understand where he's coming from? If you're a member of the Republican Party in the year 2021, the answer is a resounding sympathize with the bomber. Within a short while after Floyd Ray Roseberry was taken into custody, Representative Mo Brooks of Alabama tweeted effectively sympathizing with what the bomb threat guy had done and how he understood how he was feeling. This is what he tweeted. I'm aware of the Capitol bomb threat. I'm monitoring the situation. I'm in Alabama. My Washington staff is accounted for and safe. I pray for the safety of Capitol Police and first responders on the scene in Washington. Sadly, violence and threats of violence targeting America's political institutions are far too common. Although this terrorist's motivation is not yet publicly known, and generally speaking, I understand citizenry anger directed at dictatorial socialism and its threat to liberty, freedom, and the very fabric of American society. The way to stop socialism's march is for the patriotic Americans to fight back in the 2022 and 2024 elections. I strongly encourage patriotic Americans to do exactly that, more so than ever before, and bluntly stated, America's future is at risk. Now, this sounds like a reasonable statement, a tweet from a representative in Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives. But you have to understand what he was saying. It was directed at dictatorial socialism and its threat to liberty, freedom, and the very fabric of American society. These are inflammatory words. They're meant to do exactly what he intended to do, get his base all fired up and supportive of this one man. Now, let me ask you, is attacking the Capitol on January 6th, wouldn't that be considered dictatorial? Somebody dictated to them to do that. They didn't. You didn't have 1,000 people come up with the idea all of a sudden, and they all agreed on their own without even speaking or even thinking to do the same thing at the same time. Somebody dictated to them what to do. Now, attacking the Capitol, wouldn't you consider that a threat to liberty, freedom, and the very fabric of American society? The purpose of it was to stop the election. The purpose of it was not to have President Biden's presidency certified so he couldn't take office, and that way Donald Trump could have stayed in the White House and slowly, even though he lost the election, not move out and continue giving orders. And it failed. So it looks like Mr. Roseberry was influenced by irresponsible politicians and white supremacists on dangerous right-wing media who keep insisting that the 2020 election was rigged. Congressman Mo Brooks that sent that tweet, I'll tell you a little bit about him, was one of the leading Republicans spreading that lie that Joe Biden's 2020 win was illegitimate, saying in November, "There's no way I'll vote in the House to ratify the Electoral College votes of states where illegal votes distorted the will of the people in those states who voted legally." In other words, he was letting everyone know that he was not going to ratify. He wanted the same outcome as Trump did when he asked those people to attack the Capitol. He was inside the Capitol. He was one of them that said he was not going to ratify, and if he didn't, there weren't enough ratifying, then Biden couldn't have taken the presidency. So they tried from outside by having the people attack and having a few inside the building threatening not to ratify. So there was a revolution on the outside and on the inside at the same time, and it failed. Later, he gave a speech to the crowd at that rally that preceded the deadly riot on Capitol Hill, in which he directed Donald Trump's supporters the following. And this is his statement: "Start taking down names and kicking ass," with an ASS. Start taking down names and kicking ass. Does that sound dictatorial to you? Yet we, the freedom lovers of the United States that were not there on the 6th, have never, ever supported violence against our government and love our country. We are supporting dictatorial socialist governments? We're smarter than that. We're all smarter than that. These guys think they're talking to donkeys or what? It's ridiculous. So you can understand how dangerous Donald Trump's supremacy movement is, that's in full swing right now, right this minute, as you try to get back to normal lives after a tumultuous 4 years of his twice impeached one-term president that will go down in history as the first president to incite an attack on the United States of America's capital. Unbelievable. Look what a Donald Trump follower did in the United Kingdom just a few days before this bomb threat by the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. Yes, those tentacles of horror and violence are now abroad in other countries. And it lets you know what's going to happen here if you let them get their hands on power. Jack Davison, suspected of killing 5 people before turning the gun on himself in a mass shooting in England this past Thursday, was a Trump supporter who posted about devil worshippers in government. The suspected shooter has been identified by police as Jake Davison, a 22-year-old who went on a 6-minute rampage killing his mother, Maxine Davison, because she constantly disagreed with his view on politics, a 3-year-old girl named Sophie Martin, the girl's father Lee Martin, as well as the 2 bystanders, Stephen Washington and Kate Shepard. It was the worst mass shooting in Britain since 2010 by a Trump supporter. How do we know he was a Trump supporter? Before the shooting, Davison expressed his admiration for Donald Trump on Facebook. On his Facebook page, Davison claimed to be from Arizona, but his distinctive accent is typical of people from the southwest of England. In one post from 2018, Davison shared a Trump quote, and when his friends ridiculed him in the comments, the suspect answered, "You may not agree with his political views," that is Trump's political views. "I do, but he is different from the scum like Hillary or the people running our country like the neocon sellout that is Theresa May, and she was then the British Prime Minister." Elsewhere in the comments, he wrote, "Skepticism of government is key and everyone should be ready and prepared for anything bad that could happen." And boy, did bad happen. "I'm aware much of the government is deeply flawed," he says. "There are many pedophiles and even reported devil worshippers, people that sell us out to foreign countries." QAnon. Trump followers, devil worshippers, and pedophiles. Lord. He followed the pages of Trump, all of his children, and several Trump businesses, as well as pages for the NRA, Fox News, Breitbart, Ted Cruz, and Ben Carson. In one comment, he said it was his dream to move to the United States. Boy, am I glad he never got here. Could you imagine? That's all we need, is 6 people dead on the hands of another Trump supporter. Look, stay alert and informed, my fellow Americans. Americans that are like me, who would never lift a finger to hurt our beautiful country. the most successful and powerful economy in the history of the world, that everybody wants to change on the other side and blames us? Go figure. Go figure. The most successful and powerful economy in the history of the world. And most importantly, be ready to sacrifice your comfort during the 2022 and 2024 election by voting no matter what. If you're hungry, if you need to go to the bathroom, if you're thirsty, if you're tired of waiting in long lines to vote, this country's future will be at stake. Stop to think that if they're willing to use violence today and they're not in power, and they're doing it just to get the power, won't they use it even more once they have the power? And the funny thing is, they're only 30% of our population, about 100 million. 230 million of us, 70%, don't necessarily agree with their tactics. They want the power to control us by instituting an autocratic system of government. An autocratic system is where the top dictates to the bottom how to live, what to do, changes the laws, and changes everything in a way where it disempowers the people. And it empowers the few. A democratic system of government, which is what we have, is where the people speak to the top through their representatives to try to get things moving in the right direction and for the will of the people, as the founders originally intended, because they were running away from an autocratic country, a kingdom where the king was all powerful, telling everybody what to do, and everybody had to jump and do exactly what he said, or it could cost you time in prison, and prisons were not nice at all back then, or your life. So America knows what it is. The country was founded running away from an autocracy, a kingdom. And that's where these people want to take us back to. They want to institute an autocratic government with an autocratic president to take over the country and change the Constitution and change the procedures of the legislature to make sure that the new majority, the browning of America, the non-whites, don't have a say-so. Now, they're going to be powerful anyway. They control the money, they control the banks, they control... Look, it's going to take generations for us to even catch up, even though we might be more. More doesn't make you more powerful. You need money. Why? We live in a country, in a capitalist country, where money talks and bull walks. Money. Where does the money come from? From corporations, from production, from buying and selling and manufacturing. If there's no trading, there's no money. So we need to have a powerful system of capitalism. The money rolling in. And we, the minority, that's going to be the majority, are going to be the consumers. We want to protect this. It works well. It's not perfect. It never will be. But what else? What else is? Where is there a better life than we have been able to enjoy? And I wasn't born in this country, so I know the difference between living outside and living here. And I can guarantee you that I've lived much better here than I did when I wasn't living here in this country. I was living in the country that I was born in Latin America. But if you stop to think of it, if you take the last 4 years of the Trump presidency and multiply that stress, that discomfort, that relentless uneasiness that we were subjected to during his presidency, and expect it to intensify and remain with us indefinitely once the Republicans gain power and if they gain the presidency. You're going to be living at that pace of life, feeling how you felt for those 4 years, forever. Until another insurgency comes along and political change comes along in another 250 years. It's taken 250 years for someone to come up with this crazy idea of wanting to change us to an autocracy. It could take another 250 years. If 25 years is considered a generation, 20 to 25 years, that's 10 to 12 generations from now, if it repeats itself. And maybe a few wars in between, like the Civil War. Let's keep what we have. We fought hard for it. Americans have lost and given their blood to keep this thing going. And we should cherish it. We should respect it. We should love it. We should never attack, and we should never be violent with other citizens that are trying to be respectful and considerate of others in this nation. But if you think you want to live for another 250 years under those intense feelings that you were feeling during those 4 years of Donald Trump, think about it twice. And I'm sure it's going to motivate 2/3 of us. That 1/3, I doubt that anyone can help them. Maybe some. I hope and I pray. But those 2/3 of us, we have to do our duty. We have to protect our country. I'm Juan Andres, also known as Senor USA on The Naked Truth. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.